And also, it's also fair to also acknowledge that because we have this inbuilt longing for community, to belong, even if we don't call the word community, but this inbuilt longing to belong, to connect, to be known. And that's not going anywhere for as long as we are human beings as well. I think we have given ourselves to what I rather call pseudo communities. And we seem that basically something that promises community without doing the hard community work, you know.
That we are actually now, so first there's the loneliness epidemic in our midst, but then yes, like we are the loneliest that people have ever been since the history of humanity. More of us are getting married later and later in life, which means more of us are now moving into apartments where you're living alone, and then my neighbor is living alone, everyone is living alone, anyone. But also increasingly we have a reduced capacity for social interaction because we always have something. We have a screen.
A box.
Yeah.
A box to stare in. A lot of life happens in the middle, like in the in between. There's no highs, there's no lows. And the most lonely you'll ever feel is in those moments because now your community, in a sense, don't have a reason to show up for you. So, yeah, I hope nobody gets to experience that loneliness that comes with knowing you have people, but these people are not here. Hello friends, welcome to ReImagine, the podcast. Today we are ReImagining Community. We are your hosts, Vic Munala,
Akiolo,
and Nashwa Rugoro.
To start us off, we are going to read through this quote by Henry Nouwen, and then we'll just talk a bit about it, and then flow wherever we go. So, community is where humility and glory touch. However, community is first of all a quality of the heart. It grows from the spiritual knowledge that we are alive, not for ourselves, but for one another. Community is the fruit of our capacity to make the interests of others more important than our own. The question, therefore, is not how can we make community, but how can we develop and nurture giving hearts? By Henry Nouwen.
End of podcast.
Yeah. Good night. See you next time.
Yeah.
The most difficult thing is to understand that quote. But yeah, I like the idea that you do not set out to find good community. You set out to change something about how you are. Like, so that's what he says about generosity of heart. What does he say?
Giving hearts.
Yeah, a giving heart. Like, the first thing about creating community is to actually not to go out and find community, which I feel like that's the default. It's like, where can I find a community that's 1, 2, 3, whatever you describe as like the typical community you would want, where we don't start there. We start from how can I in myself develop, I guess, the capacity that is needed for me to be in that community that I desire. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and I was thinking, even like where he started, with like community is where humility and glory touch.
That's
what does that mean?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Big English words that mean something good.
It's like humility, we know what that means.
Glory.
I think. Glory, I don't know if I know what that means.
No, I think, so I guess in my head, I thought that group, whatever glory looks like, glory of the Lord. But whatever glory looks like, in my head, it's like this mystical beauty of community. You know, that thing that you just sense because you're in a community kind of a thing, where there's this giving and receiving kind of happening. where other people are centered on each other's and one another's interests, kind of a thing. You know, I think it's like a fleeting moment when you get that, like there's something bigger going on here than just the conversation we are having, the stories and all this kind of a thing. I think just that glimpse of that, which I think is like the best gift of community, whatever. I was just thinking that because then we don't go into community with these giving hearts, as it were, I feel like then we rarely encounter that, you know, which is why we even struggling to understand. Yeah, this humility and glory kind of a thing. I don't know, like
is the humility because whenever you come into that moment where there's true community, you know that it's not one person's effort. It's not you don't create it. What is it? Like you almost receive the gift of a community from like no one has the power to actually create this. This thing exists as a gift for everybody, and I guess that's where the humility comes in.
Yes, and also it comes in with the sense that you show up to whatever this space is with the posture of giving, not just receiving.
Not just receiving.
Actually, I think you show up with the posture of both giving and receiving, kind of a thing. And with the idea of centering other people's needs before yours. So I think that in itself describes humility, kind of a thing. I just think that maybe the glory comes when multiple people are doing that for each other and for one another, that then creates this space that none of us can completely claim, but also none of us can say we haven't contributed anything. You know what I mean? So that's I guess what I'm saying in my mind, like the mystical sort of fruit of it. But then that's such a rare occurrence in that sense. So then in my mind, it's like it sounds like it's a self-feeding loop kind of a thing. So like we show up more looking for community than to give and receive from community, which then means that even whatever we call community is more about egos competing for this space and everybody taking as much as they can. And then therefore, that does not bear the fruit of that humility and glory, which then means that we miss something even for what we characterize as community, which then means that we are forever hungry for that same community. You know what I mean? So I guess we just caught up in this vicious cycle. Until some guy comes up and names it.
I think the thing about this quote, I think there is a particular way we want to be seen whenever we are looking for community. So as you're looking for community, you're also looking for, the question you're asking, I'm looking for this kind of a community. But at the same time, you want to be seen as this kind of a person who hopefully can fit into this community. And I think what Henry Nguyen is talking about is, probably it doesn't work like that. It starts from a deeper place where you need to drop your ego and just be and show up however you are and hopefully engage in that community. Look at how new people come into new communities. There's that observance of where can I go, where can I... Rarely, maybe there's few people here and there, like they just come into new spaces and occupy that space. But for a lot of people, maybe I'm speaking for myself, you go there and read people, and the more you read people, you want to be seen in a particular kind of way so that you can belong to this community. And I feel like Henry Nguyen inviting us to that point where glory and humility meet is the point where we can drop that and just show up in this space. And he says it starts from a giving heart. But then that's not as simple as it is. You can't just show up, I'm here to give. Our first inclination as humans is always to receive. It's what can I get from these people? What can add to my advantage and that kind of thing. So that's where we gravitate towards. So now flipping it to what can I give? How am I giving? And all of that is a bit complicated.
Brené Brown actually has a really good definition for what you're describing as fitting in, like the difference between fitting in and belonging. Like what we're looking for really is belonging, but what we practice over and over is fitting in.
Yes.
So fitting in is assessing the group and deciding what part of myself will show up to this group, right? Or if that part of myself doesn't exist, I go manufacture it and then I show up to this place as a particular person. That's fitting in. You might literally move into that space and kabisa, like, find your way in, but you just practice fitting in, not belonging. But she says true belonging is when we can authentically show up into a space as already worthy and enough of being there, actually. Which I guess is the hard. It's the harder work.
And also, like, even I connected with what you're saying. This idea of showing up for community, and even like his question, how can we make community, whatever. And I'm like just listening to us, and I'm also wondering and reflecting on like some of my full communities. I wonder if community is also not things that we go seeking out as much as true community also happens. You know what I mean? Like if I do the work to develop a giving heart, and that becomes not like, oh, now I have a giving heart. Like, let me go to a community and say, here's my giving heart. You know what I mean?
Take it.
Yeah, but
Take
then,
it and use it.
Yeah, but if I become the kind of a person who then shows up in life with a giving heart, with an enoughness and worthiness to belonging, then almost like wherever I am, all of the spaces definitely, but in some spaces that increases chances of community happening. You know what I mean? Like some of my very beautiful communities, I don't think that I went out of the way to like create community. You know, maybe most of the times I'm shocked that this community still continues to be thriving and like giving and all these kind of things. But maybe it's because the people within those particular communities where there's full belonging and worthiness, either we have done the work, so then everybody sort of shows up, differences or whatever that is, but shows up ready to give. And because they show up ready to give, then what automatically happens is belonging, and then authenticity, and then community kind of a thing. You know what I mean? So maybe it's true that community actually does happen. It is not something you go almost back to this like reverse responsibility for. What if we did the work to become the kinds of people who show up with hearts ready to give? And then I wonder if we'll be shocked at all the spaces and spots where community happens. That's my thing.
So the interesting thing about that is that we are actually now, so first there's the loneliness epidemic in our midst, but then yes, like we are the loneliest that people have ever been since the history of humanity. More of us are getting married later and later in life, which means more of us are now moving into apartments where you're living alone, and then my neighbor is living alone, and everyone is living alone, and no one cares about anyone. But also increasingly we have a reduced capacity for social interaction because we always have something. We have a screen.
A box to stare into.
So it's like I was actually reading this article by Esther Perel who was saying like when we walk into a lift, we don't make conversation. We turn to our phone, so we don't say hi. That's like generally. I know you do. Actually, but it's shocking that you do.
To lifts.
Someone I lift with you.
I don't go into lifts.
But the thing with this technology and how it's moving us away from practices that made community happening possible, where it was like I can actually talk to people. Now it's actually cool to be the guy who doesn't know how to actually talk to people and like who doesn't pick their phone because please text me on there's so much stuff around like myself and what makes me comfortable, and I don't want to talk to these kinds of people, and it's so insane that it's not an accident that we are actually here where communities are not actually happening. Even though it would be nice if like what you're saying were true. It's like it's still clashing with this our reality of like, okay, we are increasingly less and less, we don't know how to socialize with each other.
think part of the thing could be us misunderstanding the complexities of what community brings.
Yeah.
Just that by itself, because we think it will happen.
Yeah.
There's, you think it will happen because, or we are used to places where communities form because we are in close proximity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
It's the most shocking thing.
Yeah, the moment community demands that you do the work, then it doesn't happen in that sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then the other thing, I was listening to someone saying, generally we are losing the third places.
Yeah.
So there's work, and then there's home.
Yeah.
Rarely do we get enough time to build community because you are busy, you are stuck in traffic for 2 hours, you live where and all of those things. So there are no places for social interaction. I mean, in Kenya, you can go to a bar.
The music starts at 11.
But then you guys are not talking. So
The music
you're
is
not-
loud
The
enough.
music
Make
is
sure
so
you're not-
loud.
Yes. Church is supposed to create that.
Ooh.
But then we also come to church with plans. Like I am attending the first service and leaving immediately.
Because I have to be somewhere.
Yes, or the church has 2 services and you only have 10 minutes
Between the two
between
services.
the 2 services. So you need to leave immediately. So even the church, like the social gathering, how the society is set up, is not set up in a way for us to easily form community. So that means that we have to do even more work to make them happen. All of us are living in different places, so you have to commute.
Yeah.
There is this recent thing of working from home. Once I've worked from home, you can't call me to your house. I can.
It's like, what are
To
we
do
doing?
what?
I am getting my house.
I'm already in my house. So all those things are factors that contributing to this loneliness epidemic, and so it has to be addressed from somewhere. I don't know where, but it has to be addressed from somewhere.
And I think also, all these like challenges, community is challenging. I mean, even like starting with where Agi and you, Vic, have taken us, like even compare where that is vis-a-vis where Henry Nguyen is. You know what I mean? This place of cultivating a giving heart and stuff like that. And we are all the way back here saying, we're not incentivized to cultivate that giving heart because I got my phone and I got all these people that I somehow feel close to, even if it's never really the truth of the matter, and I was listening to that, and also it's also fair to also acknowledge that because we have this inbuilt longing for community, to belong, even if we don't call the word community, but this inbuilt longing to belong, to connect, to be known. And that's not going anywhere for as long as we are human beings as well. I think we have given ourselves to what I would rather call pseudo communities. And we seem to, basically, something that promises community without doing the hard community work, but then still ends up contributing to why we end up more lonely, because then we tried. You know what I mean? I tried community.
It didn't work.
Yeah, so even in church, yes, like there's a story of multiple services and whatever it is, but then the answer to that, then we came and said, okay, let's have a midweek small group meeting. The thing is, right? And that was wonderful, but then, if you're being honest, a lot of it was mediated proximity as compared to a group of people who then did the painful work of saying, do I know you? It centered most of the small groups, and I don't want to say, let's just say most of them, they center on some content, some material, you know what I mean? So it's easy for me to come and even study a book together without ever
living there, not knowing you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
But then, because no one knows me in this or some other pseudo community, then if I get hurt here, then automatically say, man, community doesn't work. Turns out what hurt you was a pseudo community. And I think also connected to our hunger for belonging and connection and community, then we also take our longing for community in all sorts of places where they are also not as compatible with community. You know what I mean? So then the number of people who also want their workplace to be also their community place.
Yes,
you know what I
yes,
mean?
yes,
And then,
yes.
which is like, we are all wrong for that, right? But
Yeah.
let's be honest. There's a lot of ways where it's also not compatible. But then we bring our longing for community here, and then when the work shows up with its own dynamics and culture, whatever, and we get hurt here, then that's one more place where community has been snapped. You see what I mean? So in the end, then we are stuck, sort of, with our gadgets,
Yeah.
in carpet, but still, and to be honest, but still with a deep, deep longing for community.
Yeah.
So all these things that we're talking about haven't invalidated our still desperation for community.
Yes.
So,
So Vic, you must have a solution or two.
Now that we're just saying, it's just bleak.
Yeah.
So bleak.
again, if you came to this podcast for solutions. Yeah, another thing that I think another part where community can hurt is in the transactional nature of it. And transactions are good. Friendship and communities being transactional, it's a good thing. You are forming community, hopefully from a giving heart, as Noel is talking about. But then hopefully when you are in need, that these people will show up
Yes.
for you in one way or another. And I have been part of many communities where people have shown up for me in different phases of my life. But then I've observed that people show up, people need reasons to show up. So in moments where you're celebrating life, weddings, graduation, whatever, people will show up for you, and that's good. When you're mourning and going through grief, people will show up for you. But then a lot of life happens in the middle, like in the in-between. There's no highs, there's no lows. And the most lonely you will ever feel is in those moments, because now your community, in a sense, don't have a reason to show up for you.
Yes.
So, yeah, I hope nobody gets to experience that loneliness that comes with knowing you have people,
Yeah.
but these people are not here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because the only reason they would be here, they already showed up here.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, and actually that's a really big thing, especially talk about, especially in our culture, like this our Kenyan African context kind of a thing, because it's like one of those trends that like just sweeps over, where community becomes a commoditized something, It's like we are a community, so that in the hope that one day we'll show up for you, And we would use that like to threaten people.
To tell people you'll be there alone. One day you'll have Amsiba.
Let's see if you're going to bury yourself.
But I'm dead. But I'm dead at that point.
Yeah. No, but and I think again back to the idea that I say, like maybe that a particular community, like it meets needs. It's important. It's a challenge. I guess the challenge we are trying to press in harder is to say you can even have that community that shows up for you in weddings and graduation and birth and all those different things, all the way to death, and still to live an achingly lonely life.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because we struggle a lot with what Alice said, this idea of belonging, this idea of connection, this idea of being intimate with people who know you and all this kind of thing,
Yes.
So then even when people show up, and that's a need that we need to categorize as an important one. But also even as people show up, it's still like there is still like this desperate need to say, I also belong. And I think part of the loneliness that stems from that is I conflated as being brought together to be able to show up for one another during whatever times. I conflated that to be what I really needed community for, So maybe there are also still like the idea of levels, So you need good work colleagues at the office. You don't need to be enemies or whatever it is. But that can be also where all your community needs are met. You need people who can study the scriptures with you and encourage you, that kind of a thing. But it can be also like this, I guess for me, I still keep coming back to this idea for you can have pseudo communities all around you, and you have community only when you do the hard work of developing your heart of giving. Well, let's also be honest, like people who are also very nice and good at showing up for one another, they are also terribly stingy. You know what I mean? I only show up for Agi and Agi alone, That's not someone who has developed a generative heart. You know what I mean? And I think there's something to that idea that our community, maybe at its heart, is also supposed to form us into a kind of particular person in this world. And the way we keep segmenting all this community just insists that we are always people who are not evolving as far as our capacity for community is concerned.
And did you want to talk about the people who are your people, but you're not their people?
Why me? No, that's the thing. It's like an interesting thing that that you can exist around a space that feels like a community, and you're like, this is my community, these are my people, but you're not their person. You know? And I think for me, it's like, it's the people that you think about in those moments where you're like, okay, so I can call you, I can come chill in your house, or I can come and do, just run. For me, it's my community are these friends of mine that I'm like, I'm coming from Westlands, let me pass by your house. But then there's people for who I would never make that phone call, because it's just a random phone call. Even though it feels like I'm their people. I don't know. Does that make sense? I don't know how that is navigated. I think we are all just looking for so much clarity for who is actually my person. And in that, I think in the season when I had those questions, it was like, I don't know if that is actually the point. I think the point is to actually name who my person is, as much as the people who have become my people just happened to become my people just because we were showing up to each other. So I think that showing up is, we were doing the work. This is just me. Let me talk about like the girls group that you guys know I'm a part of. Struggling with like, oh, let's meet up. It's a book club. All of this, and it's like many people. We're like 14 now. We were like 10 at the beginning. It was like,
you just skipped 12.
I know we had a moment there to connect with the Lord, but who are we?
The Lord added to your numbers daily.
From glory to glory to glory, multiplication. And how this community has formed, and it's become such a core part of my life today. But how it formed is more like what Nash is describing. It was just like, it happened. It happened because every Tuesday evening, we came from work, from home, from wherever, and gathered in one place, shared a plate of food, and had conversation, right? Yeah. Now, if you think about like that intentionality, it's like, it's a Tuesday evening. They say it's a Tuesday evening. We had to create the third, what did you call it? The third space. We had to create the third space for this community to become what it has become. But also the interesting thing is that a lot of us didn't know each other at the beginning. But it's not like we sat down and said, you tell us more about yourself. And then you tell us more about yourself.
That's not how it happens.
No.
People need to tell us about themselves.
I mean, they can introduce themselves when they show up. But by and large, this community becomes because the members of this community are showing up every week to each other. Like that's literally it. Yeah.
And I think also another big thing to add, actually, because I know the 10 at least.
You don't know
No, but the bigger thing is that it was not just these people showing up on a particular Tuesday. It was a group that also emerged out of people who, outside of this Tuesday space, are also doing work. You know what I mean? So there is a way that we say the community is about showing up. But I think no, like it's not showing up to this particular space. Yes, it's like showing up to this particular space, but it's also carrying on the work from this particular space, ongoing. You know what I mean? So it's not like my biggest commitment is to be here every Tuesday. You know what I mean? But then people are also evolving and growing and learning and during the ups and downs, whatever. But if your greatest community just to say, I'll be here every Tuesday, and you're not changing, even what you're bringing of yourself here becomes less and less. You know what I mean? So then it's not like there's any stories and being enriched as you guys meet consistently. You know what I mean? Which I think is what we do with the pressure of, like, say, a book club or something. Almost saying like you are outside of this Tuesday space doesn't matter. It's about this other thing that we are talking about here, right? You see, community it evolves. It's all about you becoming more and more enmeshed into one another's lives, kind of a thing. So then it's like that idea that I think the thing that hit me as you're talking about, yes, there's a commitment to show up every Tuesday, and then the people who are showing up every Tuesday, this is not the only space they are showing up to. They are also showing up to themselves, to their pain, to their trauma, to their things, not in a very dramatic sort of way, but they are maybe not the word is present to their lives and all the ways that is evolving. So that then, if I came this Tuesday as this person, then next Tuesday I also bring a slightly nuanced version of me, kind of a thing. You know, so I feel like those two go together. The individual work we are doing and then the collective coming together.
I agree that they come together, but you know, we are talking about a people where your foot is not even in the door. That's why I'm like, the showing up is such a big part of like, you don't have a foot in the door because there's no how your life is set up. There's just no room for that, which is why that showing up is so important. And I think the other thing about the showing up is that, and in this space, you were talking about this before, it's that there's no particular way that you need to show up. I mean, we've had seasons of like back and forth and like this is happening and this is happening and I can't come this. I mean, people don't come every Tuesday for sure, but it's knowing that whenever you want to show up, this space will be there, and that's such a gift, you know. So it's like the Tuesdays that you're feeling less than
full.
Whatever, less than yourself, like the work has not produced fruit in you. You can sit it out, and there's no judgment, there's no shame about not showing up. It's not that thing for like no one is getting merit for how many Tuesdays you showed up. No, it's just that whenever you're like, yes, I want to show up to this place, the place will be there, you show up and the people will be there and we'll all be like, hi, you know, it's good to see you, what's been happening, we'll catch up, right? But we are talking about like, I think that the crucial thing for me is that this space needs to be there and it needs to be created by someone. I don't know. Like there's always
someone needs to create a space.
Someone needs to create a space and then hold it. Because again, we are dealing with human beings. We are not easy around each other. It's a bit, there's all the nuances of how we need to show up and what we are talking about fitting in and all of that, which can make it hard to show up to community. But it's like whenever there's something that I don't want to discount that the showing up, like how showing up can actually become the accelerator to your transfer, to that work that you think that you're talking about, that needs to be done. Because when you show up and then there's all these people, there's that thing that Nadia talks about, the leaning onto she talks about it in the context of faith, that when you don't have faith, you can lean onto the faith of others. I think sometimes that's true for community as well. When you feel like, I can't be here, you can lean onto the other people and just be like, okay, so today I'm here, I'm not feeling it, I didn't read the book, I don't know what you all are talking about, but I'm here. And I'm just leaning on your gathering. I'm just leaning on this gathering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, take me in.
Yeah.
Community and scripture.
What is happening there?
I'm just taking in what Agi has just said. Like my mind is opened a different box that has to be given up to be open. Wait, is that a question? I'm like the guy who deals with scriptures here. I'm going to change my title.
But I think the other part of community, just to add, I think part of showing up is also isolation in certain moments where you feel like being in this community is too much.
Yeah.
It's not that the community is an unsafe space, it's just that you are in a season where this community will overwhelm you in one way or another. So maybe in some moments you need to retreat. Hopefully you don't retreat for too long, but and also not using the retreatment as an excuse not to show up to the places that you need to show up to, and just navigate that life, that journey in the different seasons.
There's a time, so I have like two friends of mine, so together we form like a community of three.
Like, does it look like in this gathering you're the person with community?
You men, and in fact we need to talk about community, men and community, women and community.
Join us on the next episode.
Yes. Yeah, it's just random. Anyway, so me and these three friends of mine, we are having conversations. So each of them are having like different understandings and expectations from this community. And for one of them, it's like what she was pushing for was like what the outcome of this community can be, right? Like, I need to know what we are doing, how we are doing it, what's the goal, what am I learning from you, how are we teaching it, you know, all noble, all good, you know, all of that. But I think we do need goals. But I think the thing that my other friend, like how she responded is like something that has stuck with me today. And she said, my friendship with you is not inconsequential because there's nothing we are doing. Like, you can't, it can't be reduced. And she refused. She was like, no. If we are not going to say that because there are no goals, then there's no friendship. Like, it's those two things are not equivalent. And that was so powerful. And I think it was her just saying, I am here I'm here in this space. I'm going to keep showing up to this space. I'm going to keep showing up to you. I'm going to keep showing up to our lives. And if we never actually achieve whatever achievement is, it will just be good enough for me to have been here. And that idea of accompanying each other, like that community is basically us walking each other home, as Anne Lamott would say. We are literally walking each other home, and that's it. You get your journey, I get my journey. Everyone gets their journey, and we just get to accompany each other. It's such a privilege.
For communities, there needs to be food.
That's a basic
crucial. I think most of us get that right.
Most of us get right.
Most of us get that
especially
right.
Africans.
We do get that right.
Yeah, and also like I think like with the things that we are also saying is that I think also the posture we most of the times carry into community is like someone else is starting the community, and then it's how we show up there that matters most, you know. And I think also it's important to say, but we also bear a sense of responsibility to be the one setting up the space where others then come to belong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not some skill left to certain people or whatever. And I think back to Henry Nguyen, it still comes back to if we have hearts that are generative, if we have hearts that have capacity to center others over ourselves, you know, then we also do bear responsibility to show up into the world, open to being the ones who start these communities, you know. So, because here we talk a lot about community, about to do with what someone has set up, and then we get to participate there, you know. I just think that I still come back to this idea of what if this becomes a posture of a way of showing up in life, you know. Because also, there's a community, like the ones who are gay, they sound quite intense, you know what I mean?
What do you mean?
But
not the ones who are gay, the women ones.
The women ones, you know, generally, you know, which is where men are strong. But the bigger point is like there is that understanding of community, and then like that's longevity, and it's beautiful. But also there is like what we were saying, like the part of community that is about connection and belonging and enoughness, you know, like I don't have to meet you like over 20 years to get that sense that I belong to, you know, which is what again was talking about, like even the idea of being the kind of a person who says hi to other people in a lift. You know what I mean? being the person who is not forever glued on the phone like everybody else, being the person who disrupts that accepted norm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just like says, hi, you know? Sure, now imagine like, that's what I'm saying, it's both and, like, because you're looking for the person who says hi, also you're looking for someone who responds
Who says hi back,
with an open heart. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it's not like at least those back to high school days of Katianaing each other and like just saying hi, like it met with so much hostility.
It's so
Yeah, I have to do the work. You know what I mean? It's just a hi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think back to Agi's idea of like we're talking of people who don't even have their foot in the door. It's like how do you even get the foot in the door? So then we get to every Tuesday night kind of a thing, so that we get to the place where we're not quantifying. We're even at a place where we can talk about defining or not defining what this friendship is. You know what I mean? I keep feel like we never even get there because literally like we leave our houses with one commitment. I'll leave this house and I'll come back not having met anyone. And then like the culture we bump each other in matatus and everything else, you know. So that's a challenge, right? And connected to that is to also say that all the ways that then people knowing that deep longing we have for community, all the ways that then it gets abused, you know. So back in the sense like if some dude is saying hi to you in a matatu and you are a female or you're of a female gender, you almost know how that story goes. You know what I mean? Like we have become a culture where we consume or we abuse one another's deeper longings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So then it can just be
That's how
high.
cults start.
Cults start like
Because
that.
of our need
For community.
belonging and community.
Exactly.
Someone will come and gather you.
Exactly.
And start telling you things.
Send me money. It's one of those. don't get too close to home. I'm a pastor. So the real point I was saying, yeah, it's like we need to be the kinds of people who then bear responsibility to initiate community. Not to even say community, to initiate belonging wherever we find ourselves. And at the same time, to at least be wise enough to respond to that in a culture where also that has been so deeply poisoned. So we show up in the world like deeply suspicious of every good act. So then the price of that is like then we are stuck with our loneliness, even when there's all this abundance of love all around us.
I've just had another thought.
We welcome thoughts.
I know about like how the burden the burden of this belonging that was supposed to be shared amongst a community have now become the responsibility of spouses and romantic partners. Like
that's a thought.
I know, like it's like people used to, do all these things with different people in the community, then come home to their spouses, and it's like great. But now it's like you're my community. You
all my community.
You
needs.
meet all my community needs, and if
So
you
you
can
run away from other communities to go to your wife or husband.
Yes, but because that's the only one that's available to you readily, especially if you're like married or something. It's like, do you have to do? Yeah, you don't have to like create a space.
Exactly.
It's there.
Yeah.
This person is there for, and I think when you're talking about the abusing of it, it can become like a burden, for one person to be something that they were not ever meant to be. Like they were not meant to meet all of these community needs. These that were essentially designed to be shared amongst our people.
Yeah.
Now it's just between me and you. Me and you, we ride or die.
Yeah.
We ride or die, yes. We are doing this life together forever. We are always together. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. I don't have even room for one more person.
So
you just the one.
Yeah. So I think this community pandemic, I know today it's so
Community pandemic.
epidemic, I don't know, the lack of it.
Yeah.
It's created another problem.
Yeah.
Where like it's even hard to be in relationships because they come with a myriad of expectations of deeper longings that cannot be filled.
Exactly.
Just cannot be filled by this setup.
Yeah. And also, it's like, but it's still a reflection of like both that hunger and the inability to do the work in a wider scope. You know what I mean? So like if I meet you and say like I'm romantically involved with you, whatever, then I'll channel all my energy of building community to you, which it's of course, it ends up being burdensome, but it's still this thing for I can't you spread like this energy to a few of your boys, also like you
feel like this has been now reimagining relationships.
Okay, we are reimagining community. But it's true though.
Yeah, that's
the thought, anyway. It was a thought. It was a thought, yes.
That's not for another podcast, it turns out.
Okay.
Which is, anyway, you have a benediction.
I got
That has a benediction. After all that, we will end here. I know we haven't offered much.
Sometimes naming is back to your friend. The naming itself is valuable.
That's the value we are offering. Thank you.
But we end every one of our podcasts with a blessing. And this is the idea of what we are hoping that this conversation, this reimagination births in you. And so for today, say ages ago, it starts with ages ago, the Creator God said that it is not good for man or woman to be alone. And so for you, may you be blessed with a rich and loving community. May you know the joy of being seen and known for all that you are and still be cherished. May you be blessed with people who will hold space for you and indeed hold you through the seasons when you are less than your best. May you be a trustworthy community to someone else longing for it. May your life be richer for all the honest goodness of friends who celebrate and cheer you on. Grace and peace.
Amen.
I have a recommendation for people to go and watch an introduction to Joy.
Oh, by Rob, our BFF.
BFF Rob.
Yeah.
Our
just
friend from America.
Yeah, it's just the introduction.
It's just an introduction. What does he say? What is his punchline?
If you want joy, lower
the bar.
This is a call to running the bar.